What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Rip City Rundown podcast. It is 7:13 Pacific time, draft night. The Blazers have picked up 2 players, and I think it's going to be a happy podcast. West, how are you feeling?
Oh, man, dude. Where do we start tonight? Because, dude, I honestly, we'll just start with this. The Blazers take Clingan at 7. Before that, this is like pre-draft stuff. We're not even thinking about the draft yet. It's an hour and a half before the draft. All of a sudden, Deni Advija gets traded to Portland for Brogdon, 14, the 2029 first-round pick. That's going to be the least favorable one in 2 seconds. So that was kind of the teaser. And then the Blazers draft Clingan, which, according to Woj, I'll just start this off the top. We'll start with our pick, obviously. But Woj said if Clingan entered the draft last year, we could have picked him last year. That's how much our talent evaluators, which we talked about yesterday, even the day before, talent evaluation is what Portland has to hang their hat on. You got to trust Cronin and you got to trust Mike Schmidt. So
I fully agree with that.
Clingan to 7. It's so much value.
I think something we've done the past 2 drafts is we've been totally just our emotions have been so high. In 2022, we were like, sharp, steal of the draft. Let's go. We're so high. Last year, we were so pissed that we drafted Scoot because we knew it led to Damian Lillard. We're going to keep our emotions very steady, but I think the base of the emotions is happiness. Like, this was a good night. I said on Twitter, when it comes to the value you got tonight and the positional needs and the players you got, where they're going to play, you didn't get a guard, positional needs and value. This is the best night Joe Cronin's had as a GM of the Blazers, and I think that's pretty obvious. I said yesterday, I thought Donovan Clingan should be the first overall pick in the draft. I think he has the highest floor in the entire draft. He's the most NBA-ready guy. He's going to come in and contribute from day one. Obviously, we don't. That's not huge for the Blazers, but it's such a positive, and I think he has a high ceiling as well. Like, this is a guy that is going to roll to the basket, set hard screens. He's one of the best screeners in the draft. He's probably the best defender in the draft, I would say. It depends on what you're looking at. And I thought he should go number 1. So the fact we got him at 7 is, I mean, I don't care if we said we would rather have a wing. We said we want a guy that's, taller than 6'7", and we got that. And we got a guy a lot taller than 6'7".
Yeah, he's 7'2", and I think an underrated part, it's not really underrated, but people don't talk about this enough. I mean, he's coming from probably the most NBA-style offense you can ask for. UConn, straight culture. The dude's from Connecticut, all right? He can deal with some cold weather, all right? You know, he's going to be cool in Portland. I know we joked in his post-draft interview, like off to the side of the stage, he was like, you know, I'm a 2-time like champion, but I'm not satisfied. I want to keep winning. And we were like, well, we can't provide you that yet. But no, I mean, you thought he should have gone 1. If I was going to, my caveat is that I think Sarr would have been not 1, but that was unique in the fact he didn't want to play for Atlanta for some reason. And so they had to go Risa Sher. But I mean, Portland getting Clingan at 7 is, to me, probably in terms of value, it's the best pick you could have at 7. That was realistic, at least, because Sarr was not going to drop below 2. He just wasn't. And so, I think, I mean, I'm very happy. I think partly, again, on draft night, we're not emotional, but the emotions are higher on draft night because now we feel like we've actually done something and have hope for the first time in 365 days. So I do think we're going to be very optimistic about the pick regardless. And I think just the way it played out with Detroit absolutely pooping the bed with Ron Holland. And you like Ron Holland. I like Ron Holland. The question is, of course, is 5 worth it for him? I wouldn't say it was a stinker, but Ron Holland is a reach. It's a reach, and it's a curveball, at least. It opened the door. And then you had, just to quickly say, you had your Memphis and Portland battling it out for number 6. And I think I even said this, I don't know if I vocalized this to you, but I was thinking, like, to me, this is the first time, at least I can remember, when I've really been heavily focused on the draft, that the Blazers kind of had things fall into place for them. And what I mean by that is Clingan might not have been Detroit could have gone Clingan. I know they have Jalen Duren, but Ron Holland going there kind of opened up a potential for Portland to take Clingan. Charlotte had the opportunity to trade with us or Memphis. Apparently, neither one of us gave enough. And I my heart of hearts, I think Memphis was probably pushing harder because I think Portland had an inkling that, you know, Clingan was going to be there all along. And I think it worked out because I think Charlotte was so high on Saloon. I think if they maybe in their heads, they're like, if we trade with Memphis, go back to 9, Portland could take Saloon if Clingan's off the board. I think Saloon was on our top 3. It was probably Saloon, Clingan, and Cody Williams in that order. And they were all on the board going into 6. And so I think Charlotte kind of having to think about that, because people are saying maybe Saloon's a reach at 6. You could have traded back and got him at 9. But who knows what Portland would have done at 7, because Cody went 10. And so I think Charlotte kind of had to think about that. The Blazers now for back-to-back years, I saw this on Twitter, did not succumb to the Charlotte Hornets leverage attempts. That's back-to-back years now. I just thought that was funny. And also, the last thing is Memphis got rope-a-doped into taking Edey. Not saying it's a bad pick, but they ended up taking Edey in reaction to Clingan being gone.
We would want Edey. I want to say a caveat, just in case something happens at the end of the draft with the Blazers. We're currently at like the 21st pick. So if you're watching this tomorrow, Thursday, and the Blazers traded in on pick 28, just if you want to hear that, skip to when we react to pick 28, because we'll probably still be talking about the time that could possibly happen.
That's a good point. We could package a little 34-40 for a late first.
Yeah, you never know.
Never know.
I just think I am, like you said, I think it's the first time I can remember in a while that you can argue last year's draft went our way because we got the guy we wanted probably all along in Scoot, but that had such a big caveat with the whole Dame thing, and it was weird emotions. I think this is the first time in a while I've kind of left the draft really excited, because even the Sharp year, we were kind of like, oh, I kind of wish we traded that pick, because it was like, OG, could we possibly trade for him? Things of those lines. So again, I said last night that no matter where the Blazers go, unless they go guard, I'm going to trust Joe Cronin. And it's a lot easier to trust Joe Cronin when I also have the same views as, like, this is a guy I think could have gone 1. Like, if we went Saloon, I would have trusted Joe Cronin and been like, okay, you think Saloon's the best guy, so I'm going to trust him. But, like, I don't know a ton about Saloon, so it's hard to be like, I know what I'm getting with Clingan.
And that's just to piggyback off that. I think the reason why Clingan was a potential number 1 is his floor. Like, okay, Saloon is kind of the boomer bust pick, so to speak. Clingan has a solid high floor. Like, you know what you're going to get out of him, assuming health and everything. Of course, like, health is for every player the biggest thing. And we all know what has happened with bigs in Portland before, and no one wants that, but it needs to be addressed. And I have my computer on top of a wood right now, so I'm going to knock on it. All right, I just knocked on wood. But no, I think Clingan having such a high floor, but also having that ceiling as well, because I think the knock on Clingan is what? Sorry,
I just saw a tweet, just Clingan talking, saying I want to bring championships back to Portland. Come on, last guy that led us to a championship was a white center.
I literally was about to say that. I'm not gonna do the bad take thing, but my first thing was like, as a joke, Bill Walton Part 2, as a joke. I don't think Clingan will ever be as unique and as energetic as Bill Walton. Bill Walton is like the most unique personalities ever. But yeah, Clingan's got a high ceiling as well as the high floor, and I think that's where the Blazers probably. And again, it's set. He's 7'2", and I made this joke too. Like, unfortunately, Wembanyama is probably resetting the standard for like what you need in the NBA. And I'm just saying, like, how many, like, Jokic and Embiid are great, but how many dudes are going to go meet Wembanyama at the rim? Clingan will get dunked on by a Wembanyama, 100%.
Probably in the Western Conference Finals in 27.
And the knock on Clingan is, okay, so he does have an injury history. You know, he did have the foot injury, small, but again, with these big guys, you can't take a chance, or not take a chance, but it's always going to be in the back of your mind. And then, of course, it's somewhere with Edey, but not as pressing. It's just lateral movement, how he's going to look on the perimeter, and if one day he can extend his range, which I'm sure he's capable of. I'm not sure. We're definitely not going to ask him to do that for the foreseeable future. But you even said like a Valanciunas type offensive game. He's going to be better than Valanciunas defensively, I think.
And I think like I think his like ceiling could be of like post-up offensive game. His ceiling could be Valanciunas, but I don't think that's what the Blazers want him to be. We don't want him to be a back-to-the-basket center. Like, that's what you're getting in Zach Edey. If we had drafted Zach Edey, that's why I would have been frustrated, because I think that's too one-dimensional. Because when Zach Edey's on the floor, to be successful, he kind of needs the ball in his hands. Donovan Clingan. Again, I'm comparing all these guys that can catch lobs to Derek Lively, but he could be like a rookie Derek Lively his rookie year. Like, he could have that big of an impact. I really think like Clingan could. I wouldn't be surprised if Clingan is a favorite to win Rookie of the Year. I know he's not going to get the gaudy stats, the points, but he's going to get the blocks. He's going to get the boards. He's going to have the opportunity, and we'll go into that. We've still got a lot to discuss when it comes to roster construction and who's on the team. But this guy's NBA ready, and he fits what the modern NBA is. Sure, he's not a stretch big, but I think you can you go two ways with an NBA center in today's NBA. You get the guy that can be the stretch big, and then or you get the guy that's the rim running defender. Like you can go with, and of course you want the perfect mold of both for a great NBA center, but like we just saw in the two teams in the finals. Obviously, you want to be like the two teams in the finals because those were the two best teams this year. You had a team with a Porzingis and a Horford, stretch bigs that could protect the rim. Horford not as good as Porzingis, but stretch bigs that weren't really back to the basket. On the other side, you had guys that were lob threats, and the other guy. And I think you're more looking at for the Blazers. You want to be more like the Dallas mold. You hope Scoot can be your Luka Doncic. Obviously, not to Luka's level, but the guy that's attacking defenses, throwing lobs. So I'm very happy with the Clingan pick all in all.
And I think that an underrated part of Clingan's game that people have been discussing is he can play make a little bit. I mean, at UConn, he was used as a hub. He's a capable passer. I'm not saying he's the playmaker that Nurk is. He's a great screener, and that's the other thing is and we'll talk about Ayton and Robert Williams, and we can talk about Duop Ethan Baji for feeling it, but who knows? But just to have a guy in Clingan who is young and who just someone who can provide some stability, I guess. Not that Ayton can't, but a little more like defined role in terms of like Clingan, you're not going to take mid-range jumpers, and you don't have to have 20 shots a game to have a role on this team. And that's not a shot at Ayton. I'm just saying I think it makes it easier and simpler for Scoot in year 2 when you have a 7-2 guy setting a screen for you and can run to the rim.
That's something I just thought of. I think this pick, not that getting a wing wouldn't have been this way because it would have fit the mold we needed, but this pick specifically is like, it's not signaling this, but it's almost like, okay, Scoot, like this is a guy for you. Like this fits your game. This is a guy that's perfect with you. I don't think Ayton and Scoot were a perfect fit together because Ayton, again, wants the ball a little more. Now, Ayton was amazing to end the year. 22 and 14.
Yeah. Yep.
What were you saying?
Yeah. I was just going to say, and honestly, anything else on Clingan? Like specifically,
I'll just say, I think another reason I like the pick a lot is because you're slowly starting to see the type of roster and players complementing each other. And that goes for the other guy we got tonight, which we'll get into later.
Helps when you get a 7, and when he's 7-2. It just paints a clearer picture. Let's move into, just because we're talking about centers, let's talk about Ayton, Time Lord, what we're thinking here, and then we'll jump into Deni and the whole Washington Wizards move we had earlier. You said, you made a comment that prompted this to me. You didn't mean to do this, but it made it seem like Ayton's no longer has a role on this team. And I want to ask you, do you think now all of a sudden Ayton is on trade watch, for example, or do you think he's a guy that can coexist with Clingan for a year, half a year to the deadline into the summer? Is this something the Blazers, do they want to ease Clingan in or throw him to the Wolves at center day one? No one knows the answer to this, obviously, but what do you think we should do?
For Ayton, I would be surprised if Ayton's not on the team starting at center to start next year. I think I would be also surprised if Robert Williams is on the team. I think that's the next expendable guy. I think a irresponsible thing to do is just trade the guy just because you drafted his possible replacement. So it would have been malpractice to trade Anthony last year just because we got Scoot. Because
I agree with that, and I'm in your camp there. I think if I was making an argument the other way, the only thing I would say is, in terms of if you had to trade one, I mean, who knows what we do? We could have all those centers on the roster, and who knows? But if we're choosing between Ayton and Robert Williams, I think there's a case to keep Robert Williams and trade Ayton now because Ayton kind of revitalized his value a little bit. The contract's crap. It doesn't matter how good he's going to play. The contract's crap. So that's just the fact of the matter there. But I feel like Time Lords. I feel like if you trade Time Lord now, you're kind of trading him at an all-time low because he didn't play at all. And I think he's a guy you want to keep around the deadline, kind of showcase a little bit.
I think
That's just me talking though.
I do think that's a good point. Actually, I think like you said, Time Lord's value is probably at its lowest it's been, at least at his time on the Blazers. So sure, would you like him to be healthy, play really well for a 2-month stretch? Hope he stays healthy for that stretch and then flip him at the deadline. I think that's a very realistic way to go.
Yeah,
I just think, again, things change in the NBA so fast. I don't necessarily want to give up on Ayton just yet because as much as I'm saying Clingan has the highest floor, like that's also because this draft isn't crazy elite. Like I mean, we saw Gaffer and Lively coexist fine for a whole year. I'm sure Ayton and Clingan can do that for sure. And like you said, Ayton just had a great second half of the year. So like he was improving with the Blazers. I mean, I saw some people say, "Oh, Ayton, you can finally play the 4 because you're too soft to play with the 5s." I don't want to do that. That's just too many big people on the floor at one time. I mean, Ayton commented on the Trailblazer post saying, "Yes, sir," to Clingan being drafted. So
yeah,
I don't think we're going to see this whole
like.
I don't think you're going to see Ayton like be pissed off that we drafted this guy because honestly, I think Ayton is one of those guys that his attitude's not going to change no matter what. He's happy. He's making money. Is that a great thing for him to not have some killer attitude? I mean, no, but he's not like some dude that doesn't care at all. I think he's a pretty even-keeled guy, and his attitude's not going to change that much.
Yeah, and I think Ayton, his it would be irresponsible for the Blazers to trade Ayton without Clingan stepping on the floor. That's an emotional play that's coming out of tonight of drafting him.
Yeah.
I definitely think having a Ayton Clingan front court is great in terms of starting and bench. But the other thing is, and kind of making this narrative or making this point more generally now to the Blazers roster in totality, is you with drafting Clingan, you like you said, you have a vision now. You've put pen to paper in the sense of you kind of can see what this team wants to do. And I don't know. I just think that
I'm dreaming right now. I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking like of all the guys we've gotten for the future, who's our point guard, hopefully for the future?
But that's what I'm saying. Like
just let me go through this thought exercise for me. I feel really good right now. Who's our point guard for the future?
Scoot.
Who's our shooting guard?
Sharp.
As of right now, who's our small forward?
I guess Advija.
Who's our center?
Clingan.
Do we have a 4?
Jeremy right now, but
for the future, for the future, who could we possibly be wanting to draft in the 2025 draft that fits like a glove at number 1?
Cooper Flag.
No, that's why I like the Clingan pick a lot because it's not a guy that like needs the ball in his hands. So you're not like it's always scary to have so many young guys on the roster because it's like with Pistons right now, you have Asar, you've got Ron Holland, you've got Jaden Ivey, and you've got Cade Cunningham. Those are all guys that aren't off-ball shooters, so they all need the ball in their hands. So it's clunky. Like
I agree, and
I see a vision.
If we just want to talk about Detroit, they don't have any shooting, but that's neither here nor there. I was just gonna say, with kind of seeing the blueprint now, it's you start to think as fans, you start to think as probably even Joe Cronin, you start to think like, what is Simon's a part of this team for the future? I think Simons has more of a future with this team than Jeremy Grant does for sure. Jeremy Grant's like going to be the next domino, I think, to fall. I'm not saying that domino's soon. I think I don't know, it's soonish. I mean, define what soon, next summer deadline. Yeah. I mean, I think, but now you start asking yourself, does Jeremy Grant go get us draft? Does he get us draft compensation? Does he get us another young player? I mean, it's you start with Clingan now, you can see the vision, and now you're starting to like these guys who have been the stopgap guys. Jeremy Grant's the definition of that. Just by the way. It's just something now. You can start thinking about the next step. It was premature before the draft to think, what are we going to do with Jeremy? Because you didn't know, are we going to take a wing? Does Jeremy need to mentor Cody Williams? But now you have like a center who people can say I'm not going to say start day one, but was a guy that could have been a number 1 overall pick. and he's a guy that comes from. I'm going to assume he's a mature guy coming from UConn, back-to-back champ. I'm going to assume he's mature, and not Danny Hurley, freaking Danny Hurley, Bob Hurley. Oh
Danny
wait, no,
Hurley.
yes, no, I'm
Bobby
sorry.
Hurley's the other one.
Yeah. Side note, watched too many Arizona State games back in the day. We'll just say that. I'm sorry, that dude. I had flashbacks right there.
And I agree. Like, getting a guy from UConn is, in a draft of uncertainty, go ahead and go with guys that have played for a national championship team, and this guy has been for 2 times. Before we go into the other guy we brought in tonight, there's pros and cons to every move. The one I think thought that came to my mind when we took Clingan is, dang, it's unfortunate because the 2 guys we traded, two of the main pieces of the Damian Lillard trade, were centers, and this is kind of signaling both of them might not be a part of our future. Your response to that?
I think my response to that would be, yes, I agree. It is unfortunate, and even with it, just happened last year that the can't miss prospect was a point guard, and probably unfairly to Scoot, we compared him to Damian Lillard because of the positional similarities. Obviously, this year it's we wouldn't be talking about this if the can't miss guy that fell to 7 was a small forward. We wouldn't be talking about that. So it is unfortunate, and you can't plan for that. Now, what you could, if you're an anti-Crone, if you're not part of the Crone zone, you can say, well, they've liked Clingan for 2 years. They should have asked Boston for a non-center if they knew Clingan was an option. But again, you still have to be like, they probably, before the draft lottery, they were like, all right, well, Clingan's number 1 on our board. We got to be we got to get in the top 3 to get him.
Yeah.
And he fell to 7. So you can't project that. So yes, I think it's unfortunate, but also we've now seen, Deni Advija is now a part of the Damian Lillard trade. It's never going to stop. It's just going to keep going down the line. But now it just provides you flexibility of potentially trading someone in the future. And we talked about it. We're comparing Clingan to Ayton. Ayton's the better player. Obviously, went to the finals. He's a top half of the league center. You could argue he's a top 10 center when he's engaged. But he's on a bad contract. He is young. He's 25. But now Clingan is going to be on this rookie deal for freaking 5 years, and he's already a better defender than Ayton is, at least at the rim. And I think like you said, when you have ball-dominant players, in terms of fit, I can convince myself that Clingan is a better fit than DeAndre Ayton. And I don't think saying we drafted a center here is fair to now go back in time and be like, well, why did we trade for a center? It was Ayton for Nurk. Who?
No,
that's
yeah.
great.
No.
That's
no.
great.
I kind of agree with exactly what you're saying. It's one of those things where it's kind of, you can just say, dang, kind of unfortunate how it turned out. But that doesn't change the fact that we got a guy at 7 that shouldn't have been there at 7. And we got a guy that, you can't be mad at leaving. So that's kind of anything else before we close the book on the Clingan side of tonight.
Nothing. I don't want to be too excited because who knows?
Yeah,
he could be bad.
All right. The second thing we'll talk about. The first thing the Blazers did on draft night, I'm going to kind of just spill everything just so I don't forget anything, and then I'll let you yap.
Okay.
The Wizards traded Deni Avdija to the Blazers for Malcolm Brogdon, the 14th pick, a first-round pick in 2029 that's going to be less favorable, so probably not that valuable, and 2 second-round picks. Avdija, I'm just going to read a tweet from NBA University. I'm just going through kind of what I retweeted and stuff like that. Avdija is on a clear upward trajectory as a 23-year-old 6'9" ball handler that can defend. Feels very unlikely anyone drafted 14th in this draft will have as much promise as Deni. Big time talent infusion for Portland. Absolutely love this swing for him. I said, this is my own tweet. This is not someone else's. So give me some props for it. Brogdon, 2 firsts and 2 seconds for Avdija. I like the player and fit, but that seems so steep. Makes me think Brog has 0 value and 14 is worth nothing, which we expected. The optics may look like an overpay, but the odds you get a guy like Deni from what you gave up was very slim. Oh, and the contract is beautiful.
It's elite.
As of now, and I think I'm officially declaring this is a good trade for Cronin and Co. It takes you under the luxury tax. You save $16.8 million, and you get a two-way player that's 6'9", and he's only 23 years old.
And so
all of that sounds really good.
It does sound good. And I think for people who are hung up on the draft compensation, well, when you shave $16 million and you get the younger, better prospect, it's going to cost you something. And it is kind of strange. I don't think you see this very often. Bad team trading to another bad team like this.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Wasn't expecting it.
It's interesting that I'm not sure what Brogdon's. You got to think they flip Brogdon. That'd be my guess. They might hold on.
Yeah, they will. I'm just curious what it will be.
I mean, I guess they could hold him to the deadline and then get like a Clippers or something who just need who, of course, they're always in the market for someone. My thoughts on Deni Advija. When the trade first happened, I was like, really? And that's not a knock on Deni. I just think when you watch players, I mean, Wizards fans probably think the same about like Shaedon Sharpe, honestly, and Blazer fans think Shaedon Sharpe's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I think Wizards fans might be like, Shaedon Sharpe's good, but like, is he that good? Because he played for such a bad team. And I think that masks people's talent sometimes. Like, we went to the Washington-Portland game when we lost by 1 in Portland. And Deni, like, he's 6'9". He is a shooter. He can defend, but he's not.
Leave that game going, oh man, we should target Deni Avdija.
But that's more because the Wizards are a joke and not because Deni isn't a good player. And I think he fits timeline-wise. He's 23. The contract is, I don't know how they signed him to that in the first place. Like, it goes down, and it's 15 mil at its highest. That is, guys, it sounds like a lot. That is a steal in today's draft. What did Jaylen Brown get, Cole?
I don't even know.
It's like 360, 260.
Something crazy.
It was something crazy. It's like
even
60
comparing
mil
it to like he makes the same amount of money as Peyton Pritchard. Like,
yeah, and he's 6'9", and he can actually he's probably better on the defensive end than he is on the offensive end, even though his numbers are good. And so I think that, again, 14 in this draft. Would you rather have Advija or someone who went, or would Advija or Dalton Connect? I guess would be the top guy.
I'm taking a 6'9" guy that has proved that this is the thing. In a draft full of uncertainty where you don't know if you're getting a good guy and how bad the draft is supposedly, you said, okay, I'm going to trade Malcolm Brogdon, who I'm sure probably didn't have much value, which I think we all understood. Brogdon just didn't have much value. That's fine. You're trading 2 seconds. Who cares? We got 5 seconds for Gary Payton in the second. We are fine on seconds. We traded 2029 first, less favorable. So at best, that's going to be 20th, probably.
Well, and the thing about that is, like, Joe Cronin, to me, when I saw we're trading 2029, I mean, it's the least favorable. So it could be ours or Milwaukee's. I don't think we have 20. We might have Boston's 2029 too. Yeah, I don't remember. So we might have 3 in 2029. The second least favorable. So the middle one. You're kind of saying you're betting on yourself to be good in 2020.
Yeah, if we're gonna. Like, I'm sorry, but
I'll deal a mid-20s, low-20s draft pick for Deni Advija right now. I mean, you saw what Rob Dillingham went for, 2 firsts in freaking.
And my final thing with that is, like, in a draft full of uncertainty, when you could have got a guy like Connect, the whole thing is you don't know what you're getting in this draft. You could just get a bust. You're getting a guy that's proven it in the NBA. He's on the same contract. I mean, a little more than a rookie contract, but practically a rookie contract in today's NBA. He fills a position of need. He's a small forward. He's not a power forward. He is a small forward, but he's 6'9". Like, and he can shoot the ball and he can defend. He's not a guy that needs the ball in his hands, and he's a guy that is going to do exactly what you need, because there's a world where, like, you have too many stars on your team, too many guys who want the ball. We saw that, like, with the Nets. Like, I'm sure if the Nets could go back, or the Suns recently, I'm sure if they could go back, they maybe would rather have Mikal Bridges and Kevin Durant. Maybe. They would probably rather have Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson on their team right now than solely Kevin Durant, because there's a cap on how many stars that need the ball on your team. So, like, Avdija fits perfectly. Like, he could be a perfect role player for a playoff caliber team. And you have him for 4 years on this contract. Like that's not normal in today's NBA.
I agree. And again, what did Cronin say? Defense, versatility, length. Shane Sharp is versatile. He's long. He has the defensive tools. Of course, Shane's going to have to actually want it, and we'll discuss that later. Scoot is an absolute dog. And then for this team to take the next step and get out of the rebuild, either Scoot or Shane have to take the leap, or you have to find that like wing scorer, two-way player. But just for now, Kamara, Matisse Thybulle, Deni Advija, those are long, defensively minded guys who actually compete. And I'm not saying that Alfred Aminu and Harkless didn't compete. It's just, I don't know. So
if you could tell me we're gonna have another version of Mo Harkless and Alfred Aminu, like that's good. Those are two quality role players that helped us go to the playoffs many years and helped us go to the Western Conference Finals. Like we're not expecting these wings on our roster right now, and Kamara, Avdija, Matisse, Jabari to be our stars. Like you need your role players. I think the two things that I'm taking away from tonight is we finally addressed what we on this podcast, everyone in Blazer world, especially Cody, has been asking the Blazers to do for years on years on years, and that is prioritize defense. You got two guys that hang their hat on the defensive side of the ball. Clingan in a elite caliber way and Deni Avdija in a very above average way. And the second thing is, I said last night, like, sure, you want to take your swings, but you also want to at some point you got to draft your role players too. Like, would you say Brook Lopez is a star? No.
I agree.
But if Donovan Clingan's Brook Lopez for the next 10 years, that is an absolute home run of a pick. Because now you're at the point where if Scoot, if Shaden, if this 2025 pick booms, then you've got a team. You've got, like, if Scoot turns out to be Jalen Brunson, then you've got the supporting cast around that star. Now, of course, the most important part of the NBA is to find that star, and hopefully he's on the roster right now, and that's still something that we're not going to celebrate yet. But because, like, if Scoot was so good last year, if we had a star on our roster last year, then it wouldn't have mattered because we didn't have the surrounding pieces around it. Like, the Nuggets wouldn't be good if Jokic didn't have the guys around him.
You're kind of low-key talking about the Damian Lillard era.
Yeah.
I mean, at a trying to win a championship level, this is different, but it's the same thing. And just to piggyback off that, this is a role players draft. As much as people want to tell you that this was a draft that like you can find your home runs, sure, there's going to be one or two home runs. Maybe Saloon's a boomer bust guy. Sar could turn it, but like the number one overall pick, Risa Share. I mean, he's not going to be a number one option for a team, and if he does, I will eat my words and come back to this podcast and I will say I'm sorry, guys. That's the number one pick. A role player went number one for now. Who knows how he develops? But Clingan is like that guy. And even Deni, you said it, without the ball in their hands, it's the most valuable thing in the league is like, first, it's like shooting with size, like real shooting with size. But then I think an underrated one, and you also have like defense, of course, can't have enough defense, but to me, an underrated one is like guys who can impact winning without the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so early. Of course, I'm not saying Clingan can do that, but he at least has shown in college at least that he can dominate a game by throwing down a couple of dunks and playing good defense. And it's different in the league, I understand. And, rookie year, you're talking about if our 2025 pick booms, that we're going to be bad this year. We are, and that's fine, but I see the vision. And just don't freak out if Clingan is getting blown by like for the first couple weeks. Like, and the other thing, like, go ahead.
Here's the thing. Here's the reason why I don't see a world where I'm mad at Clingan next year. I actually watched Clingan be elite for for a full year, pretty much 2 years at the best university, at the best college basketball team on national TV, night in and night out. I didn't watch Scoot Henderson or Shaden Sharp. Obviously, I didn't watch Shaden Sharp because he didn't play. And I didn't watch the G League Ignite. Who watches the G League Ignite? Nobody. They're shutting down now. So it's hard. It's sometimes like hard as a fan when you haven't seen the guy dominate any level with your own eyes. Of course they have, but when you haven't seen it for your own eyes, you're like, damn, is he really going to do it at some point? Obviously, I have faith that they will, but I like at least know like I've seen Klingan dominate. He's gonna get to that point where like he can provide winning basketball. I know he's gonna get there. Mm-hmm. And like you said, like you said earlier, like if he doesn't, I'll eat my words. And one more thing, like I'm kind of glad we didn't go with like the saloon. Even though I liked Ron Holland, I'm kind of glad we didn't go with the G League Ignite thing. Like we finally went with the guy we went with the good college guy. And I think there's value in like taking the good college guy because most great NBA players played in college. I know we have a ton of international guys now, but I would assume the average good player in the NBA, of course, came from college. I'm assuming the hit rate on college guys to be a good role player is higher than international guys. So,
I mean,
you have the upside for Clingan, but you also just like you have a good floor. I think that you can lean on.
I mean, if you want to talk about not drafting college guys, our entire backcourt did not play in college, and I mean, we do have a college. We do have Chris Murray. He's a nice college guy, but I'm just kidding.
One day, Chris Murray's going to be the 8th man on a playoff team for the Blazers, and he's going to be like Rodney Hood, and I'm going to love him. But anyway.
I hope you're right. I want to talk about let's just talk about the first 10 picks of the draft and just how it went.
Sure.
Any surprises from you? I think there's an obvious one.
I mean, obviously Holland is very surprising. It's just surprising in general because no one expected it. But if it was any team other than the Pistons, I wouldn't be mad. But the Pistons are genuinely the worst fit for him because you need to surround him with shooting, and the Pistons don't have that. So Holland was a surprise. I mean, I still think Edey was a surprise, like to pick him at 9. And for the Grizzlies, I just don't think he fits the Grizzlies style of play whatsoever. Because you're trying to play fast with Ja, Bane, and JJJ, and then like if Edey's going to be your starting center, then
it did kind of feel like a reactionary pick to what we did.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest, Clingan on Memphis is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like pairing him with Jaren Jackson Jr. is crazy good with Ja. I mean, that's low key kind of what I've always compared Scoot to Ja in terms of like play style and athleticism. We're projecting here with Scoot, obviously, but I think my biggest surprise was Rob Dillingham going to Minnesota was interesting. Did not see that coming.
It's pretty cool.
I was kind of upset. I mean, obviously once we took Clingan, we're not going to get him, but like I'm so high on Cody Williams, and I think it's more of just like a feel good story for me because he's like Pac-12 guy. He's got a brother in the league. He's young. He's like the perfect like mold for what you want. Mm-hmm. And so I'll be watching him carefully because he's the guy I would have wanted if Clingan had gone off at 3. The other thing is no one ended up trading up for 3. And I think when that happened, you were like, all right, so Klingan's not going 3. It's like Spurs aren't taking Clingan. And then it was like, what do the Pistons and the Hornets do? And Jalen Duren and Mark Williams are good players, but it's like if they believed in Clingan strongly enough, those are replaceable guys. I think Mark Williams more so than Duren. Duren's interesting to me. But Ron Holland was a shocker. And the other thing is Memphis trading up in front of us, and they couldn't do it with Charlotte. I'm curious if information comes out in the coming days about what Memphis was offering. Because I'm just curious what moving up from 9 to 6 in this type of draft does. Because it's not a great draft. And the other thing is Advija at 14. I know it's not actually Advija at 14, but we said we have 7 and 14. This guy's got to be 6'6" at least. We go 6'9", 7'2".
Mm-hmm.
And the optics look great too, at least for the Clingan deal. Not deal, the Clingan pick. The optics look great because again, you're getting the value you're extracting out of that is great. And honestly, I think that's kind of stupid sometimes. And I might have said this before because no one gives a rat's ass what your value is if the player ends up being bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just makes you look good on draft night. And it's going to look like a great pick if Clingan becomes like a steady NBA big. I just think it's dumb that people say like, oh my gosh, Blazers won the draft off the expected value. Like, I don't care. Let me win the draft because we drafted the best player.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna keep going back to it. Like, I literally sat here last night And I don't even know if I officially said it on the pod, but I know you heard me. Like for the last 5 days, I was like, if I'm the Hawks, I'm taking Clingan because in this draft, I would rather just take the guy that I know is going to be a good player. I keep saying that a lot, and if I eat my words, I eat my words. Like you got to have an opinion and you got to stand on something. But I just think in a world where the Blazers could have easily gone with the wing and no one would have been mad, the Blazers kind of went with, yes, in a sense, it's the
A
obvious
little bit
pick.
of a zag.
It is the obvious pick, but it's also not at the same time because if you're looking at our roster, a center wasn't the biggest need.
Right.
But I like going best player available, not guard.
I'm curious if I think going into the night or coming into the draft, the strategy was like, we need a wing. We need a wing. And I'm curious if getting the Advija deal done prompted us to take Clingan. I think if Clingan was available at 7, he might have been there all along, but I'm curious if Joe had some like a belief or an inkling or some sources from, or maybe promises from other GMs. I don't know how that works. Obviously, we don't work in front offices, but like you were like, let's do this Advija deal because what it's looking like is Clingan's going to possibly be there if, Memphis doesn't jump.
Yeah, I'm low-key sure that if Clingan isn't if they're not assuming Clingan could be there, and they're more so going a wing route, who knows if they actually go through this Avdija deal. Another thing that just like sounds sour, but I'm honestly just happy. I'm glad just Malcolm Brogdon is gone because I didn't want to keep on trying to draw up trades and be like, oh, we can add this and this classifies as the Dame package, and Brogdon actually is worth 2 first, but it may be, and his value's so bad that he's worth 2 seconds. Like, I'm glad we got a quality player out of Malcolm Brogdon. So
I am too, and I agree with you there because I do think that Brogdon's time here was very important, but it didn't make sense to keep him, and everyone knew that. And did you see Cody's text, by the way?
I can't wait for Cody to be back on the pod. We're still awaiting that interesting news he has.
Yeah, it's just absolutely keeping us on the edge of our seat there. But yeah, okay. I'll just ask you this. Give me a grade for the draft for the Portland. Well, give me a grade for the day, not the draft, the day. And it could be unfinished because we have a second round, and if there's a guy you love and you want to be like cool and be like, oh, this guy's gonna move it up.
I'll say I hope the second round. I don't really want to go with like the high upside guy. I kind of want to just take a guy that is a good college player because I think we did that last year with Repair. And the year before we went with Jabari, and Jabari turned out great. There's value in guys like that. So True. I think we have enough guys that, like Scoot and Shaden at this point, like they are high upside guys that we're hoping reach their ceiling. Obviously, they have a better chance than a Ryan Repair, but we have enough stock already in guys that we hope can be a lot better and hope to be stars that we don't need to take this big ass swing. Excuse my language. Grade. I'm not gonna say an A+, but I don't know really what would have made it an A+. Maybe like not having to trade a second first round pick in the trade. I'll say it's an A. It's an A night for Joe Cronin. If we're in a vacuum, it's a better draft than even last year because I think you overdrafted for Chris Murray. Scoot was the obvious pick, so like he didn't fall in your lap really. Like
no, this year's way better than last year because and not even that last year it wasn't bad because you got Scoot,
and that's not even including the whole like Dame thing.
No, it's the thing that he said he was going to do something that he didn't.
But it's not even that. It's like in a vacuum still, even without the whole Dame being involved. If it was just based on the picks and where we got him, and who we brought in, I think bringing in Deni Avdija for what we had to give up, and bringing in Donovan Clingan is better than what we did last year. That's not to say Scoot's not going to be the best player out of all the players we mentioned. But I just think, like, value-wise, this was an amazing night.
So just to kind of put some perspective on, or just to kind of think about this, because I even didn't think about this, is Drew Holiday got us Time Lord, Brogdon, and 14. basically
Yeah,
got the Warriors pick, and so we got
and
basically got Deni, Advia, and Time Lord,
yeah, and one of the 29
and
picks.
one of the Boston picks.
So like it's like we half traded that too because we kind of half still have it. So
Yeah, so Drew Holiday basically Drew Holiday got us Robert Williams, a first, and Deni Advia. Just if you wanted to look at it that way.
yeah,
You could say that's good. You could say that's bad. I don't really care. I think it's good because he's 6'9" and he's on the absolute. He's like on the like Mikal Bridges contract type thing where he's like on a great team deal. Obviously, Mikal makes more, but he's kind of like that. I'm not gonna say he's that type, but he's 6'9". I thought he was 6'7". He's 6'9",
so he's 6'9", and
and he's all of
again, we're not gonna
6'9".
we're slurping up Deni Avdija and Donovan Clingan so much, and I'm sure if other fans got them, like maybe they have a different reaction. But we're having this reaction because I don't think people understand how starved for defense us Blazer fans have been for the last 10 years, and
Yeah.
starved for wings, and starved for shot blocking centers, not just paint protectors. Like Nurk was a paint protector. He wasn't a shot blocker.
No, this is going to sound weird, and I'm just going to say it. I mean, we're starved for size.
Yeah.
We are. We're
And that's a
starved
real
for
thing.
size.
So to see Joe go this
And
way
length.
and to see us be able to get guys that prioritize defense, to see guys that are on good contracts, literally the things that killed the Blazers over the last 10 years in the Neil Olshey era and even the very beginning of the Joe Cronin era is we got guys that couldn't play defense and they weren't tall. We got two
And they
guys
made a
that were
lot of
tall
money.
and can play defense.
And they made a lot of money.
Well, wait, that's literally what I was gonna say, and for some reason I didn't say that. Contracts. It's great contracts. It's a rookie contract, and it's one of the best contracts in the NBA.
Yeah.
Three things
So
that Blazer fans don't get.
I will give it I'm going to give it an A minus. I'll give it an A minus.
Wow, I have a higher grade than you.
Yeah, I'll give it an A minus because I don't want to do the thing where like I say A and then like it ends up. I want room for me to improve it. Because I think it's such a cop out if you give your team an A+ draft.
Sure.
Unless you're the Spurs last year, but even then, it's like it's more about like A+ for the lottery. Like obviously you're taking Wemby. So I mean, I'll give it an A-. I'm curious what we and just to provide some context, I think it's an A- because of I think the grade could be moved the grade could be moved up or down dependent upon what happens with Time Lord or Ayton. And so that's going to be
I think if you have any questions leaving tonight, that's the only question. It's what's the center's going to look like here? I don't think you have any questions about the Avdija move.
Yeah, no, Advija makes sense. I mean, it's the underrated part that no one talks about is like the business side of things. You're getting under the tax and you're offloading a veteran guard, which is a good player, but you just had to do. And you have 8 second-round picks in the cup board, so get rid of 2 of those, please. Take them. You get a second. Everyone gets seconds.
We got 5. We got 5 from Gary Payton, so let's get rid of those.
Yeah.
Anything that has a stench of Gary Payton, get them off.
The last thing I'll say is A- because, I mean, at the end, just to put some perspective, like Clingan did go 7 in a bad draft, so I'm not going to like absolutely hype this guy up yet.
Yeah,
I did on the podcast, but now I'm going to be like, I need to see growth from him. Wow. I want to see what
Minnesota's going with Terrence Shannon Jr. Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham. That's interesting. Those are fun names.
I mean, it makes sense. They couldn't score when it mattered.
Yeah, like Shannon coming off the bench would be big, and Rob in the starting lineup would be interesting.
Even Rob came off the bench year 1 with Conley.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see who the Bucks picked? Just because for the Damian Lillard watch, AJ Johnson from the NBL averaged 3 points and half a board.
Wow, I did see OKC. OKC sent 5 seconds to the Knicks for pick 26 to take Dylan Jones, the guy that Weber State. Okay, but back to the Blazers.
Well, Weber State's Dame, that counts.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think the Blazers are, I don't want to say done until Summer League, but do you think we're done until Summer League?
If you're talking like big actual roster construction moves, then yeah, like I'm sure we'll sign 1 or 2 fringe free agents just to fill out the roster, sign a couple guys, so maybe some 2-ways or something like that. But yeah, I don't think we make any more trades. I don't think Jeremy Grant's gone. You don't have a supplement to put at the 4 right now. And I don't think he's I think it's just more likely all the guys that we think could not be a part of the future are more likely to get traded at the deadline. So,
dude, I'm sorry, but I just had the epiphany too. I'm thinking of Scoot, Shaden, Advia, Cooper Flag, and Clingan.
I mean,
Cole, that's awesome.
That is. I mean, the best part about tonight is non-Trailblazer fans are talking about how the Blazers won the draft.
Thank you for
Phoenix
saying
takes
that.
Ryan Dunn, possibly the best defender in the draft, perimeter defender in the draft.
Who took that?
Phoenix. It's a good pick.
Okay, I'm glad you said that about people saying that, because the general consensus from the public, at least on Twitter, social media, NBA fans, is like Portland has talent.
Yeah,
like we have serious talent. Of course, you want to be able to get out of the rebuilding purgatory that the Pistons just drafted themselves into again. What Charlotte, like you said on the pod last night, we're competing against Washington, Charlotte, Detroit, San Antonio to we need to prove we're a better run franchise and we can draft well, because Charlotte's not going to be better than us from free agents.
No.
Or probably even trades, for being honest, because they'll probably just veto a trade to Charlotte. But same with Portland. So I like the pick. And again, Charlotte liked Saloon over Clingan. Who knows? Saloon could be great. This draft's such a wild card. But I am happy that we actually, Joe Cronin, he did what he said. It's a low bar, but he did what he said. And he didn't do that last year.
Yeah, he did.
So I can only... It's kind of crazy that I'm like, thank you for keeping your word, and I'm complimenting him, but that's how bad it was last year. So thank you, Joe Cronin, for doing that. And I'm sure you guys are very happy that the number 1 guy on your board fell to 7. And you can't, even if you don't like Clingan, you can't help but be like, that's good. That's a good thing.
So, this is the final podcast before Cody's back with us, and we break the news, what he's talking about.
Yeah,
and that's, again, it's not a joke. Cody has some an inside source. Let's just say that. Cody's got sources. You would think if anyone has sources, it maybe want to be Cody, but Cody's got them. So make sure to stay tuned and come back to that podcast, because he might break it down a little bit, and I'm curious to hear what it is too. And overall, this was a good night for the Blazers. It's a happy pod. It's a fun pod. We got defense. It's all we've wanted for the longest time. The questions are still there. There's always going to be questions until you're back in the playoffs, but the Blazers took 2 steps in the right direction tonight, and for that, I say good job, Joe Cronin. So thank you guys for watching. You got anything else, West?
I do not. That is all I have.
Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next podcast. Peace.